Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome on back into this next set of games here. Sorry about a little bit of a delay. We did have a little bit of trouble getting people on into the broadcasting slot, but never fear. Dota 2 is here. Starladder I-League. This is going to be EHOME.L versus Newbee.Y, so also known as EHOME Luminous versus Newbee.Y. I am Lyrical Dota, joined today by GrandisV. How are you doing today, sir? And are you excited about this next game here?
Doing all right, and absolutely. The first two games, at least from the drafts coming out from Luminous, are a breath of fresh air. It's something different, not something we see very often, bringing out the likes of CK and Pugna, although to completely opposite effects inside the game. A lot of the difference between game 1 and 2 for Luminous, at least for me, was the ability to transition their teamfight wins, or at the very least pickoffs, even if they lost a couple of heroes here and there, into towers. It really was that Pugna that was the driving force for that pushing strategy, and also just the mass amount of sustain. You can deal with it given that end of the game for Newbee.Y. But again, we're going to see SCCC put on his Shadow Fiend. I definitely think it's one of his better heroes. He's very adept, and I don't think Newbee.Y are going to allow Luminous to get their hands on such a devastating draft as in game number 2.
Yeah, definitely. At least they're going to be more aware of it, more cognizant, and capable. I mean, you can take a look already at the very beginning. I think the Winter Wyvern is a great hero to be able to deal with the sort of pushing lineup. We've talked earlier in the series about Splinter Blast and how good it is at counter pushing. I think that makes a ton of sense here. The Tusk Night Stalker, though, that's a pretty scary combo, particularly once you get around that 4-minute mark there. And of course, as well, if you wanted to get a couple more levels up on that Night Stalker, you could sit him down in the off lane and run the dual off lane with Tusk. But once Tusk gets level 2, roam him onto the mid lane, try and create some problems there for Shadow Fiend. But just very versatile and effective at laning supports. And I think that's really the key here is EHOME need to be able to get good lanes if they want to really sort of accelerate and do well in the next set of games here.
Yeah, and already we'll see the effects of game number 2 and the second stage of bans, with Huskar being taken away by Newbee.Y. You lose one game to Huskar, you're just going to ban him out the second time. It's pretty standard stuff. It's not a hero that you want to deal with, even if you think you have heroes that are reasonable at countering out the Huskar. Now, for Luminous, they are incredibly open-ended, and we'll have to see if they're able to tap into the aggressive potential of the Tusk and the Night Stalker. Together, it's kind of an awkward combination. They're both good at chasing, but they don't necessarily combo super well. It's not like you're setting up for something that requires that little bit of a stun from the Night Stalker. Now Clockwork for Newbee.Y could be a very disruptive force when Tusk and Night Stalker are going for those extended chases, since those kills generally take a little while longer. You're gonna have to chase down with the Void or with the Ice Shards. This could end up throwing a wrench in EHOME's plans.
You know, I love this patch so much. This is a hero that we hadn't seen at all in the past 2 games. Immediately just comes on out there. You can throw whatever you want in this patch, and I feel like there are just so many. You know, it's cool to be able to see a new game every single time. I think about it from the mindset of me. Previously, I played a lot of StarCraft, and for there, you know, PvZ was PvZ. Versus this, you're seeing something new every single time you end up coming on the stage, and I don't know. I'm having one of those I love Dota moments. That's really what it's happening right here. And who would have thought that a Clockwork would have been the thing that made me want to love Dota that much more? But I think it's a great pick here. It makes a lot of sense. It also somewhat is a block pick. I think that Clockwork does deal pretty effectively with Shadow Fiend, and you know, it's kind of a problem where if you're able to get that solid initiation off on one of those squishy supports, I'm also thinking about heroes like a Gyrocopter hero, it kind of blocks those heroes off because it makes it more difficult to take them. Oh my god, Viper, that is not somebody you want to hook on into, because he is just going to eat you alive.
Yeah, and also just a very safe laning hero for Luminous. To throw up against the Shadow Fiend can deal reasonably well, at least in the early stages of the laning stage against the SF. Of course, once Shadow Fiend gets level 7, we'll just double raise down all the creep waves, and Viper's probably not going to be killing SF anytime soon. The big selling point for this Viper pick of Luminous is the fact that it's just super safe, and they don't really want to give away anything right now. Night Stalker, Tusk, Viper, although it is going to lend them more towards an aggressive playstyle, they could end up shaking that up and picking up more of a farming hero in the 4th and 5th slot, and have these 4 other heroes fight to protect the farm of that 5th.
Yeah, definitely. Well, we will see. I think that you're never really going to go wrong with a Viper pick. The only way it really goes terribly wrong is if you get outlaned. And the only way that really happens is if you sort of get dual mid-laned there, but I still think that they have the potential. Like, if you have Tusk that roams on in, like I said, at the level 2, Shadow Fiend's going to be in a lot of trouble. Obviously, Winter Wyvern is probably going to be nearby to be able to, soak on up some damage, or even just do a little bit of a counter gank there. Cold Embrace, keep him alive. But nonetheless, that's still just giving you more opportunity for Viper to get on top of you. And once the Viper's on top of you, it's pretty difficult to run away. If you're able to turn and fight, that's the one big sort of way you're able to... I think that a lot of times people mistake how tanky Viper is, and you're able to turn around and counter initiate onto him, but you do need at least even levels at that point to be able to do it.
We're going to see the Ancient Apparition this game around for Newbee.Y. Would have been amazing game number 2, but just the synergy with the Clockwork and Ancient Apparition makes this a very threatening pick, and also the amount of poke that these two supports have in the laning stage is super annoying. Even traditionally tankier heroes like your Night Stalker and the Tusk are really going to have a hard time dealing with Arctic Burn plus Chilling Touch. It's not something any offlaner wants to go into.
Ursa Warrior.
Ooh, we're going to see Kaidu's Ursa. Nice.
Team ban.
Yeah, this is kind of interesting. It's another just sort of run at you hero, and it looks to me like EHOME is kind of trying to do what they were doing a bit in the last game, and I think that's why you end up taking that Ancient Apparition here. It's all heroes that are going to be running on at you. I'm curious if Ursa is going to go for a quick Blink Dagger, or if he wants to go for the Shadow Blade build that you sometimes end up seeing. Is there one that you particularly like more than the other?
I like the Blink a little bit better, especially when you're against something like an Ancient Apparition that's going to be a little bit further away and is just so squishy. The extra attack speed damage from a Shadow Blade is a lot less relevant on Ursa than is for other carries, although I think it's still a viable build. I personally prefer the Blink. He needs to be able to get into the middle of the fight instantly because there's so many things that are going to be annoying for him inside these engagements. You have Clockwork Cogs, Cold Embrace, Winter's Curse that he needs to be able to eliminate very early on. That said, this is probably a pretty bad Ursa game because of those things that I just mentioned. The Cold Embrace in particular makes it very hard for Ursa to stick onto a target and actually be able to kill them off.
I mean, you do still end up getting the Fury Swipes loaded up on top of somebody. That's relevant, I think, but still, if you're getting Cold Embrace, like, you want to be able to dole out as much DPS as possible. So I think that if it's just like Winter Wyvern and one other, I think that Ursa's in a really good spot. If you see Newbee.Y try and group together and there's somebody who's able to deal damage to Ursa, maybe a Shadow Fiend just right-clicking while a Clockwork is getting Cold Embraced or something inside of Cogs, to me that's the worst case scenario for Ursa. But solo pickoffs, if Newbee.Y aren't careful, that's going to be the game plan, I think, at least in terms of the way that it will work best with Cold Embrace. I think the lineup still needs to try and group together and fight. Probably going to see a mech up on the Viper. So that's a little bit of a weird dynamic there. I like the Clockwork pick a lot, and it's sort of another one of those block ones. We've seen Ursa banned a couple of times, and maybe the Clockwork is there to be able to sort of counter pick preemptively, if that makes sense at all to you.
Yeah, a little bit. I think one of the biggest things that's going to help out the Ursa this game is the fact that he has the Tusk behind him to make up for the fact that there are going to be a lot of obstacles and a lot of kiting ability coming out from Newbee.Y, and maybe defensive snowballs or aggressive snowballs even just to get the Ursa in range will be enough to pull him through. Now, the last pick for Newbee.Y is we'll shift gears into the 5th picks for both of these teams. It's a Wraith King for them. A lot of these fights from Luminous, at least from the Ursa, are going to be jump in, try to get a kill, and then try to get out. And Wraith King makes that very difficult to do if you're jumping on top of him. That said, it's another one of those heroes that seems to be perpetually kited. And this time around, it's going to be by the Viper, and especially the Tusk.
Yeah, he has to get a Blink Dagger, I think. There's no real other way around it. And, Night Stalker quick moving in the nighttime as well. It seems to me like this is one of those heroes that they just want to be able to sort of throw in there in the beginning. They need a solid stun to be able to sort of create that separation between the Ursa and him, because at this point their stun is nothing. Like they only have the Clockwork in terms of his battery assault as well as the hook shot, and then Winter Wyvern ultimate, but you need something else to toss on out there. So I think that Wraith King was pretty good. The other option that I was kind of thinking about might have been a Sven, but I think that Wraith King fits the bill a little bit better, just because you're able to sort of have those extra auras going, and also the survivability, obviously. Slardar
Maybe they would have, rather had the Sven to somewhat deal with this Slardar. The Warcry definitely would have helped them out a lot. The amount of physical damage coming out from this Ursa is going to be insane. He doesn't need more than just a second of jumping on you to be able to bring you down if you have the amp applied.
Well, we'll see how this one ends up going. Definitive and final game between these two in the upper bracket matchup. Yet again, if you want to check those out, I am going to post what the current brackets are into chat so that way you guys can see where we're at and follow along with it as well. So thank you guys very much for tuning in. Yet again, we do still have 2 more best of 3s that are going to take place after it. But it does look like EHOME moving out pretty quickly here as they're getting themselves all ready to go. Moving on down towards this bottom lane. You know, I would have loved to see it. I know we're not gonna. Level 1 Roche, oh god, if only. If only, if only.
Maybe if they had some sort of draft like last time, but what we are going to get is a 5-man smoke up, and with Snowball and with so many ways to stick onto these targets, if they find something, it could be a very easy first blood. Whoever loses this game is going to be going against FTD.A, and whoever wins is just 1 match away from being qualified into the Star Ladder I League. So a lot on the line. It looks like Clockwork, if he's not careful, might end up dying here, but it looks like Lee is going to be just fine. Nobody is inside the Radiant Woods, and for good reason. There's an entire enemy team here, whether they have a good idea this is going on or not.
They did end up actually scouting on out the Roche pit a couple of times now with the Clockwork Flare, so wanting to make sure that this doesn't end up getting a little sneaky level 1 Roche on them. It's always something you need to be sort of aware of, and obviously you end up going on into a game down a level in each of your lanes. That's going to really limit your ability to succeed in the game at all. So it makes sense also that, you know, in the last game of a best of 3 there's the potential for that to happen. But yeah, it also means that Clockwork is going to skill up Rocket Flare first, which on the safe lane isn't the worst thing in the world. I feel like off lane it's nice to be able to keep those creeps in check, but a couple heroes here in the mid lane looking like they might want to try and jump on in quickly on the Shadow Fiend here.
Yeah, looks like the Tusk and the Night Stalker angling for that first blood on the SF. They've already placed down the ward to spot out any supports that might be behind him, and the Shadow Fiend, he has no idea, but he is playing pretty defensively, and he has a team behind him too as they bring in Jaja and everybody. Now, they're just not going to be able to find the angle. It looks like both of these mid laners will survive, if only just.
That is... that is just silly. It does look like they're going to be going for the courier kill, though. 1 more hit is all you need on the Winter Wyvern and just out of range. We have had 8 heroes mid for the past couple of minutes here. I don't know even what is happening at this point in time. Actually, it might have been around 6, but still, far too many heroes in the mid lane. It does look like Viper is finally going to be able to... Actually, it doesn't have anything. It must have just been the salve that was brought on out to him. But roaming on mid yet again, it's the Tusk Night Stalker combo, and only 1 hero in each of the lanes, Ursa and the Slardar respectively.
When you show the Wraith King top, it's kind of expected that your supports are going to be soon to follow, and this Shadow Fiend has to play so defensively. Right now he knows that Viper has this lane under control, and he's going to be able to just farm under his tower without any regard for his life, and if the Shadow Fiend walks up, he's just dead. But a Clockwork Flare, going to scout them out, it's really paid for itself, and then some. This early flare pickup coming out from the Clockwork.
Definitely. Hits the cogs also on top of Slardar, everything that you could possibly want at the early stages. And I guess the other thing about this that's nice is you can just sit the Tusk here, and it applies so much pressure to the Shadow Fiend. He doesn't know that Night Stalker has left the lane necessarily, and because of that also, he's going to be able to just sort of constantly be on his guard. Can only really throw out 1 raise from afar without sort of the danger of him losing his life.
Now, Night Stalker going to put a lot of damage into the Clockwork, just being annoying, securing a little bit of extra farm for this Slaughter. It feels like all these lanes are going pretty well for EHOME, except for top lane. The Ursa is getting his experience, but not a lot of farm, which is quite unfortunate for the hero.
Yeah, definitely. Tusk now Bounty Rune. I think that he's still somewhat okay with this. He did end up doing a single pull, it looks like, just to try and get the lane a little bit more into his favor, but it's going to push eventually. Bottom lane, chasing on after this Clockwork with Tusk here as well. This is going to be a big snowball, going to connect, and first blood is going to be going the way of the Night Stalker. Nicely done there as the rotation comes in from the Tusk. This is going to free up the mid lane a little bit more for the Shadow Fiend, feeling more comfortable in himself. Level 3 right now, still only 4-2 versus the 13-8 of the Viper.
Yeah, the amount of chasing power in this bottom lane coming out from EHOME is terrifying. And top lane, they're going to make an opening onto the Ursa, Wraithfire Blast, and the Cold Feet is going to proc. That's going to be a dead Ursa Warrior.
Oh, God. Very frustrating. All right, well, another couple quick kills there as we're seeing just 2 minutes in, a kill for both sides. I wasn't really expecting this much action, but I guess when you're in a situation where you've got, 2 to 3 heroes up against 1, it's kind of, by its very nature, going to be a bit of a problem. Night Stalker moves on back as well, going to be able to pick on up something from that courier and head on over to the, looks to be maybe bot lane. He's only level 2 at this point, but I don't know. We'll see how this goes.
It should be interesting. Oh, here comes the Tusk and the Night Stalker. They know that there's a ward now. Do they have a Quelling Blade? They have a Tango. Oh. Tusk walks back. He's going to give the vision for it, and they'll be able to munch down that ward. They know they've been spotted, but there's so many heroes collapsing on this Clockwork. He needs to play very safe. And right now, he's really not, but it looks like they're going to change the direction on this train.
So are they, I guess that they're changing on up the lanes at this point. Want to get the Ursa a little bit more farm, and definitely it's scary. Like this lane right here, you've got the cogs that can potentially catch you with the Ursa. You just need to be so careful about your positioning to not keep them in there with you. As we do end up seeing the Winter Wyvern get dove on now, a couple of 3-man snowball on forward with the crush following it up. What is this gank train that we're seeing right now? This is just ridiculous. This is mess with Shadow Fiend stacks. Don't let him catch up and just tear the entire team apart.
Yeah, the only hero that's getting a lot of farm for the side of Newbee is the Wraith King. And granted, having a farmed Wraith King is fine, but as far as carries are concerned, he's usually pretty linear when it comes to his scaling. There's not an item that Wraith King picks up and he's like, oh, I'm the most terrifying thing in the world. Of course, you do get your Blink Dagger, and that's going to help with his cutting issues, but right now it looks like he's going to take things slower and probably go for a hand of Midas. The gank train with the Slaughter, the Night Stalker, and Tusk, if they find any single hero, they're just straight up dead. That's beauty if it's Snowball bottom.
They're going to be able to find him on up there. Ursa down on top of him. Nice shards as well. Going to keep him stuck in there. The TP rotations are coming on in now. Winter Wyvern is here. We end up seeing the canceled TP on the Wraith King. It's also worth noting, for the past like 5 minutes, Wraith King has been about 10,000 units away from any hero. And I don't think that's an exaggeration. There wasn't anybody over on the other side of the mid lane. And finally, Slardar is going to come on up here, but he is just getting everything that he wants. 25 and 11 so far. And as you mentioned, he certainly could go for that Midas if he wanted to. We'll see if he ends up going for treads instead. But back down behind the tier 1 tower mid, Night Stalker thought about running in there. It's going to have to let it go, at least for now.
He's going to throw the Void. This time around, Shadow Fiend does have level 3 raise. That is some damage that the Night Stalker has to respect. Still, this is EHOME's time to shine. The Tusk, the Night Stalker have had such a good early start that there's killing potential pretty much everywhere they go. Right now, it looks like we're having a little bit of a lag situation coming out from these players. But even though the momentum is certainly in the favor of EHOME now, Newbee aren't super far behind. The Ursa is having a pretty similar situation to that of the Shadow Fiend. I don't think it's unexpected to see the Shadow Fiend struggle a little bit. He's against a Viper. That's not a lane that you really want to deal with as any hero, really.
Yeah, pretty decently. The key thing, though, of course, is that the stacks aren't there. And I think that that's the big problem that he's going to end up facing, is they need to get some type of economy built up for him behind at the end of the day. Because right now he's at 1,800. And there aren't any stacks anywhere, honestly. Even on the enemy side, sometimes you can move on in there and take out the enemy jungle. That's not even really there either. So I am not sure, particularly considering they've been having the Tusk and the Night Stalker, and at certain points the Slardar roaming through the enemy jungle. They don't even feel safe going in there. Like, it's a really tough game for this economy, and I think that maybe the only other way that I would see this working is if Viper tries to go gank somewhere and then Shadow Fiend's able to push on down the mid tier 1 tower, but Viper isn't really going to want to leave his lane either until he gets a mechanism, so I don't even know what they end up doing at this point.
I think they just kind of wait for the Clockwork to get his level 6. That's where Newbee can start applying pressure to EHOME and really being well equipped to answer these ganks that are being executed by the Night Stalker, Tusk, and Slardar. The Winter Wyvern's Cold Embrace just isn't enough right now, and the Ancient Apparition can't do anything. Just as far as heroes are concerned, is pretty darn terrible in the early game when you're on the defensive. You have this Wraithfire Blast and a Cold Feet combo, which is pretty good, and Chilling Touch might be able to pick off a couple of kills if EHOME dives super aggressively. But right now, Newbee aren't the ones in control of this game, and they won't be for a while. I don't think that's terrible for them, but let's see how well EHOME are going to be able to translate this early advantage or the early kills that they're getting into an actual lead, because that was one of the big things that didn't work out in game number 1. They're going to have this mecha on the Viper. Is that going to be enough for them? Well, I guess we'll just have to find out as soon as the game gets back underway.
So something that we've seen more often recently out of Slardar is going for Tranquil Boots. What do you think about that item on the hero?
Tranquil Boots on the Slardar?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's absolutely fine. Slardar's whole kit revolves around him just being a utility initiator. You'll see Blink and then into Force Staff, although he can do a lot of damage as the game progresses. That's not his role this game. Really, he wants to make the Viper and the Ursa pull the DPS through. Tranquil Boots, I think, are a reasonable option, mostly because of how fast you can move around the map with them. When the Tranquil Boots are unbroken, you have sprint up, you're moving at damn near haste speed. Although the treads are, of course, nice and synergize well with the bash, I think any boots are acceptable for Slider, pretty much.
Well, and I guess that's the thing too, is that you're not always like the bash isn't the most important part of his kit usually, and if you're getting a lot of farm on the hero, then you can sort of transition into getting more attack speed later on by getting other items. So I think that that's pretty reasonable. It's something that I've just seen more often recently, and I don't know when exactly it was that the transition ended up happening, but it was certainly a case for a while where treads were the go-to, and I think probably a little bit before the major was when we started to see Tranquils more frequently.
I think one of the big triggers to make Tranquil Boots more popular is the fact that Slaughter is now almost exclusively seen as an offlane hero. You'll see him safe lane every once in a while, but yeah, right now he might get ganked here. We have a Wraith King in the lane. He's going to show himself. Clockwork's around the corner.
They're going to be able to get a good amount of damage down on top of him. They catch him in the cogs. We do end up getting the crush down in the end. Battery Assault's still going, and he's taking extra damage because of the sprint, but they're not going to be able to find him out here. I don't think Snowball going to keep him alive. Really well played by that Tusk, and just like that, able to turn it back around. Clockwork ends up going down to the combo of the Tusk and the Slardar. Meanwhile, the Wraith King had to TP on out because the Night Stalker was on top of him after he used that Void. Of course, actually he didn't have any mana for a Void, so never mind.
Yeah, he already used his first and only Void, and during that cooldown he was able to get out to safety. But that was Newbee.Y's aggressive move themselves. They wanted an easy kill on the Slardar, but he's just so elusive. With 2 points up in the sprint, he's moving so very quickly, and there's just not a way for them to be able to catch after he breaks those cogs. So things have, again, tilted back in the favor of EHOME. But I suppose the silver lining for Newbee.Y is the fact that nighttime is going to be lasting forever. This is probably going to be one of the last major rotations we see from the Night Stalker for quite a while. He's only level 3.
Yeah, they need to try and get a little bit more. I feel like people often say that first nighttime is so important. He has been able to get 3 kills.
It's most about the second nighttime, yeah.
Oh, right, yeah. And I think that it's still going to be pretty important for him to get something else here. Wants to be able to pick on up that urn, and it looks like they're trying to find the dive, but not going to be able to get it this time around. They were spotted out by this ward, I do believe.
This is taking Roche.
Oh, look at that.
And there it goes.
That's a thing. And that's what you end up getting when you get all this extra room by your Night Stalker and Tusk roaming around. There's no way for you to be able to find it. Top lane, we do end up seeing this crush coming forward. Slardar thinking about going further onto that Clockwork, but not going to be able to make it happen. And that's the power of Ursa. The real power of Ursa there. 3,000 net worth lead, experience right around 2,500 as well. Treads now picked up on the Shadow Fiend, and looking like they're in a pretty good position to try and continue this lead. I can't believe that EHOME have been able to do this after that dominant performance that we saw of Newbee.Y at the first game. Like, they have really come back strong here.
And a lot of it seems to revolve around SCC not having a very good lane. Even though the rest of his lanes were struggling game number 1, he had a great time on that Wind Ranger and was able to do a lot with it. But game number 2, Shadow Fiend never got the chance to shine, and we're not really at that point yet for the Shadow Fiend this game either. Really, it's just the psychological factor of EHOME's heroes at night that make that happen, and they're also successfully D-ward. They know that they were spotted when they were going for that move, but everything seems to be falling in place. EHOME, however, haven't been able to turn this into towers, but that just makes the lead that they already have that much scarier, since you know that tower gold isn't a factor into that. That's just a pure 3,500 net worth advantage and 3,000 experience.
Oh, mid lane, we're going to be able to find this Viper. Cold Feet is down as well. Maybe another raise. Can they actually get this one? They do end up getting that to proc. Slardar in the middle of all of them is going to turn it back around. Misses on the second raise, unfortunately. Now Ancient Apparition, separated from the herd, is going to end up going down. Going to look for that last raise. Do end up getting it, and now going to chase him on forward as well. We do have the ultimate up now for the Wraith King, so maybe a bit of a turnaround. He's going to take a lot of damage here. Viper strike out as well, and now he's going to end up going down. Wants to be able to get one last kill on the Tusk. They do finally find it, but we might end up seeing the Winter Wyvern die for it. Nonetheless, yes, certainly going to go down here. And a quick 2 for 2. The key thing to keep in mind right now, though, this is the Wraith King and the Winter Wyvern, the safe lane farmer right now for Newbee.Y, going down for the Slardar and the Tusk. Just a couple of roaming heroes and somewhat of an off lane.
Yeah, and he also used the Ancient Apparition on top of that Ursa with a double damage rune, did so much inside that fight. And wasn't under any real pressure of losing that Aegis. They still have that massive asset for them to move into these next engagements. Now they have the Mecha on the Viper. The item progression just isn't quite there for Newbee, but what they do have is a hook shot now for the Clockwork. Maybe that's going to be able to turn a couple of these fights around, but the hook shot alone probably isn't enough. I think they need the Ice Blast too. Ancient Apparition's down bottom, trying to soak as much experience as he can.
Yeah, and it's a little bit of a scary situation. Like, they're all around him right now, just surrounding this AA. And he is about to hit level 5 in a second. They're going to be able to find this on out. Snowball forward, going to be able to catch onto this Clockwork. He's going to end up going down in just a second. How many times have we seen this Clockwork getting picked off? Oh my god, is he honestly just going to be able to crush him away? Oh, the shard's not going to connect!
They're short!
Oh, Mr. Clockwork. How beautiful is that?
Well, I mean, I suppose that's Caster's blessing. We talk about him getting picked off a lot, and he survives. So he'll be able to make it back towards base. Still, he hasn't been able to set up very much for the team. That's sad, as they dive bottom. Oh, they munch down the Ancient Apparition. That was a tasty ice cream cone. He has the Aegis, and it looks like he might be burning that here.
Yeah, definitely going to go down, I believe, in a second. Yes, that does end up getting a kill there. We do also have the stun that's going to come out in a second for the Wraith King, looking for a possibility to hit several of these raises. He doesn't have Enrage off of cooldown. Because of that, he's just going to end up getting taken out there. So really well played. Another quick kill there, able to turn that one back around. And looks like top lane, we're seeing a little bit more damage there. The Ice Shards actually push the Clockwork out of the cogs, and now is in a little bit of trouble. The A is going to end up popping out the Chilling Touch as well as the Ice Vortex. Looks like they're going to be able to get this kill on top of the Clockwork. No, never mind. Excuse me. Is it going to end up happening? All right, Clockwork falls, as does the Tusk, and it looks like the Slaughter is just going to slither away. Oh, is that the AA Blast just coming up right now? Oh, nice dodge there. Slaughter realizing the danger.
Yeah, he'll be able to get out of there alive. Still, the AA is pretty happy with that last turn of events. Sure, the Ursa dives him. I'm sure that was pretty annoying for them, but they kill off the enemy safe lane farmer who just took down Roshan. They also take away a pretty big advantage that EHOME have been sitting on for a while, and now does have that crucial level 6. So Newbee's fighting potential just got a lot stronger. Clockwork now has a killing buddy. No matter where he is on the map, just having that Ice Blast is so important at securing some of these kills, but maybe not when Tusk's around. We've seen already come into play the Snowball just being so good defensively against these cogs.
So, all right, we're in this situation now. Shadow Fiend has his mechanism almost completed. We're going to start getting the hook shot coming out from Clockwork. Do you think that there's going to be enough momentum here, enough skills coming up online for Newbee.Y where they can start to take the advantage back? I mean, you take a look at the net worth right now. They're about 3,000 gold behind, as well as about 2,000 experience. Winter Wyvern just got level 7. What are your thoughts? Do they have enough to be able to start turning this back around now?
Probably not yet, and most of that's down to the fact that we have the Night Stalker who's now level 6 with phase earn, and it's really the crucial time for EHOME to start making these aggressive moves. Darkness is popped, and Newbee have to clump up or else it's just going to get consistently picked off. At 16 minutes, maybe. It really depends on how these next couple of rotations from EHOME end up panning out, and well, right now they're not going to find anything.
Wraith King playing things very carefully. Shadow Fiend should as well at this point. He do have 3 heroes roaming on in here to the mid lane, but oh my goodness, they are all right here getting ready for a fight. It does look like it's going to end up happening in just a second. Jump on forward, able to hit there with the hook shot. They're also got the AA Blast coming in. I'm just losing my mind right now. So much damage coming out. Huge initiation for Newbee.Y. It does look like they're maybe going to be able to catch this Night Stalker. He's jumping back into on top of him. I don't know if this is the play necessarily. Oh, Shadow Fiend right now is going to end up going down. It does end up being the Death Requiem on top of the Night Stalker. He ends up falling. This is going to be a full team wipe. Huge plays coming out from Newbee.Y. I completely and totally lost all semblance of talking there in the middle of that fight. The hook shot in, followed by the AA Blast, was just superb. Exactly what they needed to make that happen. And a huge gold swing, 3,200, as well as just about 2,700 experience.
The way Newbee played around EHOME in that fight was awesome. You have the 2 hero cogs setting up beautifully for the Ice Blast, and all the while Shadow Fiend is lining up raise after raise. The amount of damage coming out from the SF in that last fight is insane. Even though he does end up going down, of course, a Shadow Fiend for 5 trade is one that you'll take any day. 1 for 5 is just amazing for them, especially for the Wraith King, and the Shadow Fiend's the one who really made bank. Your Midas is now up for Newbee's carry, which is well overdue. This is going to allow him to start catching back up into the game, and Newbee showing signs of life. That was supposed to be EHOME's fight, but they just get danced around it. Ursa could not stick onto a target at all.
Yeah, that's the problem. We talked about it before, the sort of kite ability that you end up having, the sort of lockdown also from that Clockwork, just so important. And Well, you do have the Blink Dagger up on the Ursa. If that ends up getting interrupted in the middle of these team fights, it's just going to be disastrous. So really well played. Slardar is going to end up picking up the Force Staff first. I think this is a great solid pickup right here. You need to be able to get out of those cogs or get your buddies out of cogs if it really comes to that. Do you think that BKB is going to be necessary as a next item for Ursa? Can you get it? Oh, hold on a second. We're going to end up finding another kill here. Hookshot not quite going to hit. Oh, Clockwork wanted that one bad, but Ursa thinking about coming back in. I don't know if that's the smartest idea in the world.
It was a blind hook. It is nighttime after all.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. There's just nothing you can do about it. You at least go for the attempt. If it hits, amazing. If not, not much lost. It'll be back up in about a minute. Everything's kind of slowed down, and that's not the pace that EHOME should be happy with. Granted, this Wraith King is not a super happy spot. Nice deny from the Tusk on a tier 1 tower top, but they want to be controlling the map here, and Newbee are still able to find plenty of resources, and maybe even defend this tier 1 bottom as they TP in droves.
Oh, there's going to be the stun coming out to start this all off. Night Stalker caught out a little bit. A-Blast is going to connect as well. He is going to end up going down. I believe they might need a Rocket Flare or something else like that to be able to catch up, because they're not going to be able to keep in line with him in terms of his movement speed. And they actually dodged the Rocket Flare coming on in. He actually survives throughout it, and well played there by EHOME to not get caught out in the middle of all of that. They do defend the tower, though.
Yeah, it'll keep standing. It does cost him a lot. Oh, blink in Ursa.
Chasing on after this Clockwork. One more hit. Oh my god, this has just been the story of this game. Nice shards, though, to finish it off. And it does look like, meanwhile, off to the side, Wraith King not quite able to catch the Slardar. Nice blink away at the end. And taking a look at that fight recap, 700 gold swings, 600 experience. And now this is not the fight they want to end up taking. Shadow Fiend there, canceling out the Requiem, just sort of thinking about it, at least at this point in time. I really want to go for it. I don't know about this fight right now. They still are canceling the Requiem. I don't know what this Shadow Fiend does. He's ended up popping it out at the end. Winter's Curse down. This is going to be a kill on top of the Viper, I do believe. Nice crush there. Going to be able to connect with the Snowball forward. Now the Winter's Curse, the Cold Embrace is keeping him alive a little bit longer. Walrus Punch at the end to make enough damage come out. I think that he's going to survive throughout this one. He's salved on up. Somehow the Shadow Fiend lives in all of the madness that was going on in that fight.
Winter Wyvern, good hero. That Cold Embrace saving their Shadow Fiend's bacon. That was amazing. And right now, Newbee, at worst case scenario, are taking even fights. That last one was great for them, being a gold swing of almost 1,500, and they're just picking him so much. Oh, Ursa getting bashed by Roshan. Nice, Roche! Not like this.
I was looking at that. I was like, bash 1? Bash 2? Yeah, okay. That's going to be another dead hero right there. That's so frustrating. And now you kind of, Newbee, you're like, let's go check out what's going on over there. Was there something going on with Roshan? I'm not exactly sure. And now the AA Blast is going to only apply the debuff to the Slardar. I don't think that they realize that, though, considering he has the Invis Room. This might be the initiation that they want. They do have the Slither and Crush in a second. Can get a 4-person one. Oh god, it could be huge. Do they have the follow-up, though? That's the real question I have. Instead, he's just going to end up throwing out the Crush and then backing out. That was kind of an interesting play there.
I thought he was going to wait for the steal there, but the team just makes the call without Ursa. This is such a hard fight. It really is. Good shot.
Clockwork able to catch there. They're going to be able to snowball on in. Actually, Tusk ends up taking out the Aegis and getting the last hit on the Roshan. Really well played there. He does end up going down for it, but already the Slardar has been taken out of this fight, and it looks like they're going to be in a pretty good position. 2 people hit with the AA Blast. Now Wraith King's still alive throughout all of this. The Shadow Fiend does end up getting killed. Night Stalker lining up against this Winter Wyvern. It looks like the Winter Wyvern is going to go down. So 2 for 2 so far is the trade. Unfortunately, Ursa not quite able to get that kill, as we do see the Ancient Apparition TP out and trying to chase after this Clockwork. I think that he's dead now. He doesn't have any mana. If he's able to fog him for long enough, oh, nice cogs to be able to get away from that one. The stick into the cogs is the only way he survives there.
That Aegis seal from the Tusk, my goodness. Ice Shards to maintain vision. I'm sure Newbee, they saw the Slardar go for the Invis Crush into Force Staff, and they're like, oh, everything should be fine. We should be able to get this Roshan, should be able to get this Aegis, take the fight after, and everything will be hunky-dory. It really wasn't, though. That Tusk makes that engagement for EHOME, because the Shadow Fiend and the Wraith King were already in a situation where they're not super comfortable, and right now Wraith King really isn't.
Yeah, he is super dead right now. Just so much damage coming out. They're going to throw out the AA Blast. Unfortunately, I don't think that they have enough damage to... Well, maybe with the hook shot. I mean, AA Blast right now is only level 1, so they really don't have the damage to find it. Oh my god, the hook through the creeps. What a sharpshooter this guy is. They're going to be able to finally kill off maybe on this Viper? He's so low right now, but the mechanism is going to keep him alive a little bit longer, and I'm wondering if they might have overstayed their welcome a little bit longer. The Night Stalker might end up going down. They need one more raise. He's getting away on 60 HP. Not even fair. They end up trading 1 for 1 at this point. Tusk for the Wraith King, but 2 heroes getting away on almost no life. The Viper and the Night Stalker. Waiting for that last possible second. Oh god. Is it going to hit? Oh god! Why?
Oh. Just looking on the minimap is hilarious when you have like these 2 little green dots going after the Viper. He's gonna survive if only just.
Oh my goodness. This is some silliness we're seeing right now. Just back and forth the plays are going, and it's non-stop. Like, I haven't even gotten a second to take a look at the net worth graph. 2,000 roughly into the favor of EHOME at the end of all of that. Experience-wise, we're right about even. It's just been sort of non-stop throwing their bodies at each other. Both of these teams want desperately to move on into the next round of this tournament, and it looks like they're putting themselves in a position to make that happen. EHOME a little bit ahead at this point, but it can go either way. Just one solid team fight, I feel like, is going to really determine the whole rest of this game. 15 to 14 at 20 minutes, about 29 kills and much less time than that. It looks like they're going to maybe smoke on up here in a second, though. Or, no, just grouping together for a second. Saying hi and then going their ways.
It's really hard to call who's actually benefiting from this more passive state in the game. I'm tempted to say Newbee, especially with how potent the Winter Wyvern is if you get an initiating item up for MRR. We'll just have to wait and see. This is just so interesting. Enjoy the brawls, everybody. There will be more.
The other thing about it is that the Wraith King with the Midas, I think, definitely benefits a lot. You take a look at the last hits right now at this point. The highest in the game is 97 on the Viper at 21 minutes into it. Relatively low. Not the lowest in the world, but not necessarily the best either. And I think that because of that, the net worth for this Wraith King is going to be higher than it would otherwise. Particularly considering he's 1 and 2 right now. Does have the 9 assists, but not huge. If you're looking for another initiation, we did see the TP out, at least at this point in time. The Night
They're aggressing
Stalker.
on the Shadow Fiend.
Swagger Fiend, need to be careful there. Is he going to go for that Sanjin Yasha next, you think?
Yeah, I think that's probably what he's going to build. Actually, Manta style this game would be quite good to deal with the silence coming up from the Night Stalker, maybe even more importantly, the amp coming out from the Slaughter, both purgeable, and I think that's probably going to, at least in my books, tilt the scales towards Manta over Sanjin Yasha, but if he goes S&Y, it's just fine. Like, either way, they're good, cost-efficient stat items.
See if they're going to be able to make this happen. Grouping together as 5. They do have the mechanism up. Smoke has not yet been brought. Oh, what a hook. Going to get on in there, immediately catch on out the Night Stalker. He is going down, no questions asked. Meanwhile, the rest of his team can only look on in dismay as the mechanism is up, and they're going to start pushing on down the tier 2 towers. A couple of people closing in on this, on them here in the mid lane, but it was just the Slardar and the Tusk. I don't think that there's any way that those two can burst anybody down at this point. Even the Shadow Fiend, I mean, he's got the mechanism. I think that he's fine. Actually get the amp damage down on top of the creep instead of the Wraith King, but no big deal at all. Tier 1 tower is going to end up falling, going for the deny. Oh god, Tusk is in a lot of trouble. He was having such a good game before that too.
Yeah, that's going to be a really great turn of events for Newbee. Not only are they getting these kills, but they're transitioning them into towers, which hasn't really happened a lot this game from either side. Although, granted, all of the Radiant Tier 1s have been taken down, there really hasn't been much signs of going for anything more than that. Newbee, you now have your Blink Dagger flying out to the Wraith King, another one of those aggressive items that could help them take a couple fights to EHOME. And really, it's kind of felt like everything slowed down from such a quick start with the Tusk, Night Stalker, and Slaughter just owning the early map. Everything's kind of gone down to a little bit of a slow pace here as it looks like EHOME will defend this tier 1.
I think that this is kind of interesting too. Everybody on Newbee is buying Force Staffs. You've got on the Clockwork, obviously, just sort of that always you pick it up item. Also, the Winter Wyvern getting pretty close to being able to pick up hers. Only about 100 gold away from that one. Already do have one on the Ancient Apparition, who didn't end up going for the Aghanim Scepter or the Hand of Midas, which is sometimes what you see on this hero instead. So sort of prioritizing that maneuverability, making sure that you can get away from the Ursa. I think that's probably the biggest thing in this situation, is being able to create that separation, because that's really what EHOME.'s lineup is all about. The Slardar being able to get on top of you, the Viper being able to get on top of you, the Ursa being able to get on top of you. Everybody just wants to get on top of you, as I realize what I'm saying mid-sentence. But it's kind of one of those things where you need to be able to create that separation.
And I think it's something that EHOME should probably invest into as well. We've already seen the Force Staff on the Slardar, but it's just such an important item when you're dealing with these melee carries, the Wraith King and the Ursa both. And it feels like Newbee just have an advantage inside these fights, mostly due to their positioning tools, and the Force Staff certainly don't help, and that is going to be your third Force Staff for the Winter Wyvern flying out now, and the Manta style is complete on the Shadow Fiend.
Yeah, pretty good there. So we'll see how this goes. The Manta style is somewhat interesting. We were talking about how we thought it might be the Sanj and Yasha, but I guess this is just to be able to get away from the silence that comes out from the Night Stalker and the amp damage, I guess.
Yeah, I think it's quite good this game. And just as a standard item on Shadow Fiend is never going to be something that you look at and it's like, oh, that's awful. It's maybe not going to be the best, but I think this game it's quite good.
Alright, well, let's see how this goes. Clockwork leading the way, leading the charge, ready to rally the troops in a second or two here, considering he does have that hook shot on up and ready to go, but they're actually not going to find anybody over here. Ursa's off to the other side, and with Roche maybe going to respond soon. Oh, they're going to find him here. This is a quick kill in just a second or two. He does end up popping that BKB, trying to get out of there, but the Winter's Curse committed, and even though he has all of that damage reduction, he's still going to go down. Really well played there to take him out, and we'll see how long this Roche spawn is, but if it's less than 50 seconds, there's a chance right now that Newbee could take this one. Okay, it's definitely not.
Yeah, it's a 2-minute respawn, but yeah, that last pickup purely comes down to the fact that Ursa feels very comfortable on this map when they have such good aggressive vision, and he had no idea that there was an entire enemy team behind him. It was a really nice smoke coming out from Newbee. We have another mobility tool coming out for the Slardar. Although Force Staff Crush is good, I think Blink Crush, even though going for the Force Staff first this game, I think is the right choice. Is still a valuable pickup now. Is it enough for EHOME though? I really don't think so. This Ursa, it just feels like he's not going to be able to do enough, at least until he gets the Basher, or if somebody's able to start off the fight convincingly for EHOME. And they've never been small-scale skirmishes outside of the first half of this game. Since then, Newbee have been playing mostly together, and if there's any one person off on their own, usually it's this Wraith King, and by the time you commit all of your spells and kill off the first life, you're going to have to deal with the rest of the team that's TP'd down to the tier 2, that's made their way towards his area, so there's just not a clear opening.
That's so tough, honestly. I guess the things for me that's going to sort of be a defining factor in this game also is we talk about mobility items and stuff. Shadow Fiend hasn't really been able to pick one up yet. Do you think it's worth it for him to go for a Blink Dagger, or just sort of tank up and become that sort of whirling ball of death that you sometimes see out of the Shadow Fiends?
I don't think he really needs to blink this game when you have so many forces on your team. You already have the Blink Dagger and the Wraith King and the Clockwork Hookshot to initiate. If Shadow Fiend had infinite slots, I think Blink Dagger would be fine, but the biggest issue for him right now is he's already committed to a lot of items that he kind of wants to keep in his inventory, like the mech, the Manta style, in his 6-slotted build, so I think probably shy away from that Blink Dagger and pick up something else. It still wouldn't be bad. Like, Blink Dagger is never going to be a terrible choice, but probably not necessary this game, although if he feels like he can make big plays with it, all the power to him. SEC is amazing.
Alright, well, here we go. They do have the ward on out. They're going to be able to spot this here. And with the sigil in the Roche pit, it looks like it's going to respawn in just a second or two. Of course, all of these teams probably are keeping Roche timers, so should know that it's going to be happening relatively soon here. And with a couple of wards spotted and out, they're going to be able to take them out in just a second or two. But everybody's going to know that this is going on now. You've got, the Ancient Apparition is about to walk on into the Roche pit. Also, the Shards, I believe, did spot on out Roche, so just a little bit of a scary situation as now everybody also is de-warding this stuff. So that's pretty cool. Do you think that right now Newbee are able to take this without anybody there? Or do they need to sort of find a pick first, take a team fight, and then go back for Roche? What are your feelings there?
It's so hard to fight into Roshan pit when you have to deal with, especially with Aghanim's Night Stalker, which, although they don't know about it yet, it's just not a comfortable situation for them. It's nighttime naturally, and you have to deal with this Tusk, this Slider. We've already seen how potent they can be inside the Roshan pit and inside such close quarters. Maybe we'll even get to see another steal if they go for something like that. Right now, they're just going to go for the straight push, looking for the Winter's Curse.
Oh, going to be able to catch two with the clockwork hook shot right off to the other side. Meanwhile, Ursa's going to town on everybody. Nice force staff, creating that separation that we were talking about. Looks like the Wraith King ulti is going to be committed for the first time as the Ursa finally falls. And just look at EHOME tear apart right now. They've got not really a great way to be able to deal with the sustain you've got at a Newbee right now. The mechanism already committed. They've got so much armor. Cold Embrace coming out, keeping them alive as well. And while you do have the clockwork that can lay out those cogs, they can't really do anything to contest this. And now with Ursa down, I feel like they're in a position where they can probably go back and take Roche.
On paper, you look at the BKB Enrage, and Ursa is like a god during those couple of seconds where he's taking no damage, he's not being CC'd at all. But Newbee just don't really care about the bear, and there's not enough CC to hold them in place. They're just constantly force staffing away, and once those couple of seconds wear off, Ursa drops like that. He's just so susceptible to the damage coming out from Newbee, and most of that initial barrage was thrown out under Wraith King's ultimate. EHOME just didn't have anything left in the tank after the force staff play coming out from Newbee. This is starting to look really difficult for them.
I think that probably Tusk needs to be the person that catches them, and maybe snowball in with a Tusk and an Ursa. But then, of course, you got the problem of, you know, the Winter Wyvern ulti coming out. It feels like they need to bait out several of these ultis, and everything needs to work perfectly for Newbee. Oh, they're going to be able to just force staff away. Like, everything needs to go right, and nothing can go wrong. Otherwise, EHOME's fight is just not going to work for them.
Yeah, and Newbee have a little bit of room for error. If the Wraith King gets caught out of position, he has his ultimate. If anybody else gets caught out, you have the Winter Wyvern with a Force Staff and a Cold Embrace to save you. Fight might be breaking out soon as they're vying for control around the Roshan pit. Ursa is going to be able to snag it. This is the Roche. She's on the deck. And it looks like they'll be picked up by the Viper.
Well, 3 heroes hit with the A blast. It's pretty good, but not going to be enough to let Newbee want to go on in for the pressure onto the enemy team here. It looks like Shadow Fiend's going to be going for the Scotty next, has those 2 ultimate orbs soon to be in hand. I like this. Also, the Wraith King building up into bigger and bigger items. Do you feel like AC is the next item here for him?
It feels like a good choice from the Wraith King. I don't think any of the other plate mail items are super stellar, and just having that plus armor for yourself and for the team is so valuable when you're dealing with a Slaughter and an Ursa. The majority of EHOME's damage is physical, even from the Viper, the Nether Toxin as well. They just don't have a lot of magical bursts. Newbee have this Ice Blast, the Shadow Fiend's Raises, which are still quite relevant. And yeah, just mass up on those aura items, and I think it will work nicely for him.
Well, this game certainly isn't over. I mean, we take a look at the net worth. 5K into the favor of Newbee. In terms of experience as well, it's a 3K lead. Of course, you can always outplay your opponents. You can always create a situation where you find a favorable engagement. It just comes down to waiting, playing that patient game. And with Night Stalker having the Aghanims as well as the Gem, they're going to be able to probably take a lot more of the team fights that they want, unless they're in a situation where Newbee is knocking on their front door. And that's really the position they need to be scared of, and figure out a way to deal with that. And I think that probably Abyssal needs to be the answer, and it looks like that's what Ursa is going for. He just needs some way to get on in there and start bear hugging away at somebody and just get on top of them. That's really the answer.
Yeah. So even with that Abyssal, it's going to be difficult. Winter's Curse, especially when he pops his BKB, even if they don't kill him during the Winter's Curse, just wasting BKB duration, wasting the enrage time, it's going to be really annoying for him. Still, everything's kind of slowed down. Something else EHOME need to invest in is a Quelling Blade. The only hero that can actually deward is the Viper, or the Ursa if he wants to blink up onto the hill or what have you. Yeah, so I think that Night Stalker would be wise to pick that up. Of course, you can use the blink on the Slaughter as well, but it just puts you in such a compromising position that it's really not what you want to be doing. But for the side of Newbee, big item pickup for them, the Winter Wyvern with the Blink Dagger.
Yeah, that's definitely going to be huge. I mean, you've got, like we've talked about already, so much mobility on this squad. 3 Force Staffs, you've got 2 Blink Daggers. You're also going to be able to just have, you know, the natural Clockwork flying all over the map on the back of his hook. Just a little Batman in disguise there as a robot. Like, it's all just in a good spot right now. And currently the Shadow Fiend, top of the net worth chart, 15,000. The next highest, of course, is 12K on the Viper, but it doesn't feel like the Viper's damage is as effective as what the Shadow Fiends bring into the table. I guess part of the reason for this is because he has a Scotty lead above him. But even if that wasn't there, the fact that, you know, mechanism on both of them, but the Manta style versus the BKB, it allows Shadow Fiend to hit so much harder. And of course, just the natural kit there of being a tank on the Viper versus being more of the right-click damage dealer out of Shadow Fiend.
Yeah, and I think that's the biggest issue for EHOME. Just the big timing window for the heroes is kind of past. When you look at Ursa and Viper as your main damage dealing force, they're going to peak at about this 25 to 30 minute mark, and EHOME really just don't have any control over this game. At worst, Newbee are just trading farm against them, and whenever they do clash, it seems that Newbee have an edge. We do have that Bastion out for the Ursa. Maybe this is going to be the game changer, but right now Newbee are just waiting out for this Aegis to expire, and it will in just a little over a minute. They haven't been able to use this Aegis to put any substantial pressure on the tier 2 towers.
Look at the damage up here top.
Oh yeah.
Like, even just with the Manta style illusions there, it's doing so much. They do have the Winter Wyvern as well as the Ancient Apparition in the area. Icy Buds all around here. Oh, Slugger not quite able to catch there with the blink forward into the crush. And looks like they're just going to get away scot-free after taking on down a tier 2 tower. As the rest of EHOME is just trying to chase and see if they can find anybody. But the Rocket Flare is going to scout them on out and might be able to find the initiation. But again, it's so scary here. Like, the Aghanim Scepter on the Night Stalker completely changes the dynamic of how Newbee have to approach these fights, because if you do get caught out by this lineup and anybody is just a little bit too far away, you are going to get picked off.
For sure, and they'll try to find those picks, but Newbee are reacting appropriately. They're so clumped up on the map, even now. They're at range where they could react. This is a Blink Force in the Winter Wyvern. Ancient Apparition doesn't need to be anywhere close, and Clockwork just has a naturally high initiation range. So their spread right now, they can't find any single hero. And even if they do, that single hero is going to be pretty hard to bring down. I guess what I'm trying to say is EHOME just haven't been able to find those picks that we talked about in the draft that they kind of really do rely on when you have things like this Slaughter, things like this Tusk, things like this Ursa. In a 1v1, 1v2 situation for the Ursa, you can do a lot of damage, but it's just never going to come to that, as the Aegis is going to be reclaimed now.
Yeah. Well, Aegis reclaimed, ready to continue on their merry way. Still a long ways away from that Abyssal, but do you think that that really needs to be the next item on the Ursa, or does he try and stop off for something else along the way there?
I can't think of anything that he'd want to delay the Abyssal for. Maybe a Lincoln Sphere wouldn't be bad, just to deal with the Winter's Curse, although it's not a super great option. Oh, mid lane.
Tusk definitely rolled forward into a little bit of pain there. Just a little bit of unfortunate timing, but oh, the Clockwork hook shot. That's pretty close there. He's thinking about it at least.
They're not going to be able to connect. If they kill off this Night Stalker, that's terrible for EHOME. Just losing that gem is going to make it so very hard for them to fight. Tier 2 tower in mid is already taking so much damage. That's one of the big things that Newbee have been doing well. Even though they're grouping up, it doesn't come at the cost of the lane equilibrium. Of course, right now, EHOME do have bottom pushed out. But if they're not careful, they'll lose tier 3 damage, and Newbee definitely can defend this. They just don't have very much tower DPS at all.
Oh, gonna be able to catch onto the Slaughter. Got a little bit too far forward. Winter's Curse committed also, and the crits are starting to come online. That was 2 in a row, able to take him on out. Well done there by the Wraith King. And when he's got so much minus armor there, you know, he's got the crits that are coming out currently level 4, 300%. He does actually start to become this really terrifying hero, and it's not something that you often see, but if he gets ahead in farm, it's definitely scary to face up against.
Oh yeah, for sure. That was such a greedy crush coming out from the Slaughter. I mean, you can understand what he's doing. Like, let's just try to push this out as much as possible, but he bit off more than he can chew, and he's going to be punished dearly for it. I don't think that pickoff is going to mean any major objectives for Newbee or really translate into much at all. Still, it stops EHOME from being a potent presence on the map. Without the Slaughter and his initiation, I don't think they can even have a chance of getting killed. So, though he's going to be coming back in just a matter of seconds.
Night Stalker continues to just run around the map, waiting to find his opportunity to jump forward. What is that actually they picked up next? Still just the gem, and does end up getting that Quelling Blade like you were talking about. So, dewarding abound. Aghanim Scepter finished off for the Viper now. And it looks like also the Clockwork is trying to build on into that. Still a good ways away, about 1,400 gold. But that item also is another one that's going to just make all the difference. Being able to get off 2 hook shots throughout the course of a fight is huge in terms of what it can do to your team. And now Ursa thinking about jumping on in here. He thought about it. The Clockwork hook almost hitting onto the Night Stalker, but at least for now, I don't know what Ursa's doing here.
He's just waiting. He knows that there's probably enemies around the corner, and he found himself here as he was running away after pushing out the creep wave. And sometimes this just happens, and right now, he's gonna look to cut the creep wave again, but there's a Clockwork right behind you. Blink, TP, can you get out?
Oh.
Nicely done.
Nicely done there. Wasn't quite able to find him, and you know, you think about maybe there for a second or two being able to shoot out a blind hook, but gonna save it at least for the next initiation.
He wants his AA.
You can't maybe find him. There's a lot of heroes over here, though, now that we have the Shadow Fiend in the area. And now Night Stalker a little bit separated. Oh, Wraith King doesn't quite have the vision to be able to spot him out, unfortunately. And that's really the problem here. Is he... Oh, crushed down on top of the Shadow Fiend? With that Scotty, there's no way he goes down.
Down. Slaughter, probably okay, too. Has the Force Staff going to go for another amp and then Force Staff away. Slaughter has been playing on the edge a lot this game. Everything's going to slow down, though. It really kind of feels like we have to have a Roshan fight before something changes here. And Roshan is up, and Newbee know it. They've thrown a flare there, and I'm sure EHOME are privy to the fact that at the very least it could be up and probably have a good idea that it has to be up soon. Here comes Ursa. He's been spotted out, though. Can't keep on going for this.
Yeah, it looks like they almost are able to catch out the Slaughter as well, but not going to be able to make it happen. Yeah, Ursa needs to be so careful. There's the hook shot. Well done there. Winter's Curse committed as well after the BKB. He's in a lot of trouble right now. Right clicks abound, hitting for a heck of a lot of damage each time he ends up throwing out those shots. Enrage going to be committed as well. Slaughter in on the backside. Not going to be able to hit any crushes as of yet, but there's going to be the jump forward. Blade mailed up Wraith King, just hitting away on top of that big old bear. Animal cruelty, who cares about it? And it looks like they're going to be going on in and taking Roshan for themselves potentially, although still the Aghanim Scepter up on this Night Stalker. They can't spread out too much, otherwise they're going to get a pick off on this Winter Wyvern, or maybe the H Apparition as well.
They want to move in the Roshan pit. EHOME just lacked the damage without the Ursa up and running, so this could be very difficult. However, we might be looking for another steal. Tusk,
2 times in one game. Yeah. All right, they're still waiting there. There's the snowball on in. I don't know if he timed that perfectly. Oh, God. That's not what you wanted to have happen.
Absolutely not. Well, that's going to be Aegis and Cheese, I believe, picked up by the side of Newbee. Clockwork gets the Aegis, Cheese to the Shadow Fiend, and they're primed and ready to go for another push. Feels like Newbee are just starting to run away with that. I think as casters, we tend to say a lot of hooks are really good, but that hook was just a beautiful read to start out that engagement.
I say everything is really good. I just lie to the public. That's just my general motif here. That's what I'm going to go for. But regardless now, Viper Strike down on top of the Shadow Fiend. The hook hitting forward on top of the Night Stalker. They also do have the A Blast on top of the Viper. I don't think that he pops at this point, but certainly we're going to see the Night Stalker go down. Buys back into the game immediately. Gem was picked up, I believe. No, it wasn't. That was picked up earlier on, I think. And still an opportunity to jump forward here if they wanted to. Tusk is going to be back up in a second or two. We'll see if he ends up trying to go in for the TP. There is the TP forward, the crush down on top of the Clockwork, jumping on forward, Wraithing in the middle of all of them. These Winter's Curse, look at the Ursa fall. And just like that, I feel like the hopes of EHOME might start to be crushing. At least the melee barracks is going to go down, and I honestly feel like they can probably maybe take another one. It's a little bit scary right now. I mean, the Wraith King still hasn't popped his ulti, I guess, and it looks like that's what they're going to be trying to do. They're able to catch on, but the Wraith King still staying alive. Cold Embrace is a pretty good spell, ladies and gentlemen, and they haven't been able to take this fight yet. Aegis now popped for the Clockwork, still haven't popped the Wraith King ulti, as we said just a second ago. Sitting at about 500 HP, hasn't burned through any of his mana either. Shadow Fiend in a little bit of trouble, and the Clockwork is back in on top of him. A Blast is going to connect onto at least one. The debuff applied, pulls him on into the cogs. That looked like that shouldn't have actually happened that way, and the Wraith King is finally going to fall, slowing on down the Night Stalker. Now, oh God, can they actually find this kill? I think that they're just going to go for the barracks at this point.
Okay, so in that middle fight, they didn't even lose the Aegis on the Clockwork. They commit hardly anything to it. The Cold Embrace is time and time again. Oh no! The Dust is going to be destroyed. That's going to be GG's. 2 racks fall in the favor of Newbee. It feels like EHOME just missed their window. They had a plan, but the 4-set pickups are really what did this for Newbee. Ursa, whenever he went in, was constantly kited, and there was nothing he could do about it.
Well, Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, that's going to do it for this first series of the night. Newbee.Y end up being able to take that one 2-1. EHOME was looking good. I think the first game was a complete and total stomp, and then the second game looked to be the same. This one pretty close. I really enjoyed this game. I really enjoyed this series. Thank you guys again for watching. We're going to be moving on into the next set of games, which I believe are, if I'm not mistaken, LGD versus Duao, which I can't pronounce, and I'm sorry about that one. But thank you guys again, at Lyrical Dota and at GrandisV. Any final thoughts before we move on into the next series?
No, I look forward to the next series.
Well, cool. We'll be back in just a second. Thank you guys very much for watching. We'll see you guys in a few.